Inukon. Tai makakita kut sauni alam mentana marche ngutillogo. Tana ulluga yanga arnannut. Kisian lilitai matana unnu nekto tautu takologi katseo. Ipatsa tautu kia halak takalawasi. Takwa takunak tau kia halak tu takunak tau ngalamata CBC kut. Kisian limanna IBC kunnun. Tana takunak sauni aktok ajikitian yang imak hakiko galwak. Tana sibulak me atai takunan yaktasi tapi kanisilat tusak me. Tana kamagilaw tabut ilip pala ko tigina majabota matsama mitsano sunaw tang mangata kisimullo awla jutang mangata tana ukaleman yaktak saimona. Tai matak tana pa kwasak nagwak tawla me matak kuno angayok hagaya ko jawluni TFN kunnut takwa dunga Federation kunnut nuna bununilag. Tana le unika yang majokano ilang at mangami amalo takwa ilagay yang kano ilang mangatit simumullo ukawsakin yang mayang takwa takunat tau nektut tau tut siagat stat sa mga hagam unnuyok asingin nitaw tayo matakunang na mga si adjiging siya makitang mamaya na kuro takwa ilang ikalo na yalang mata tayo na ilong na nitakunan na yaktasi tayo nga halo na tunidya wang na mata takwa to sa kaya kulugi ubatin ni kanwili usung mga ta amalo suna mo ato sung mga ta takwa Inuk Broadcasting Corporation kanutigi amalo ukang na mata tatsamona takayagat sakon taima ako tsingigat sa tatamatuming ubagot kinaw yang nung tawagyak sa matilogen takon na siya tuwin nagatsi sibulang mitaan na tawtun naktasi saimona ang natiyak tana atay kunun kanayak taw
Inuit katutjakatigi kullo tamatiminga inung no ilinyang nang meg ako niyalo ukaw sa kaksiman ng mata solo sibuldak pao tana ilinyang na inung no tungangayok Inuit katutjakatigi ngini ukaw si ulilaw sumabok ukiyo 15 urakton taman na pang nagtawin naksuni ukaw si ungin naksuni ilinyak titigahang na inung ning titirak biyo ikanayak biyo lo iluani sukungin naksaning ilinyakay kang ningin ning ukaw sa kain nakpagsutik sakitaw tayo nakto ITC kuni ukiyo pingasulak to ilinyako tiksait turangal lugin kanayak to yun makuno nga Inuit katutjakatigingin nun pigyarak sumagat to ukiyo pingasulak po ilinyako ti makuno nga titirak biyo miksano turangayot kallunati tullo ilinyak ti tawang mata kisiani mana ukiyo ilak tatini makwini Inuk titungal lugin ikanayak takang niyo angayok kango niyo miksano ilinyak ti tilawata makwin lang ni Inuk titu ilinyak ti simadluta tukangal waktuli inyaw naksanot kallunaw yakon nang ilutik ikanayak ti yun nunaling ni solo makwa garage kamata hanunak ko watik kubi kwa pagkulu sila may sanabingin angayok kakak si magalwa mata Inuk titu inak ukakon naksutik angayok kango lutiglo ilinyaka akong nangingin tusaragatigo ilinyakak sangin Inuk titu ngayon tuksaragluta ikayok daw kaya katagatali iman na ikanayak bi Inuit katutjakatigingin ikayok katamata ubatinning ikanayak timinning Inuk timinning ilinyakak titiluti ati kulli katimayingin kigaktu'i yakaksuti adjigingit tuni akiksimamman ITC kunni katimayakakpugut tungabik kunni paktutik kunni pulagaktulagi kunni nunatiagmi nunasik kunni ubangalu takunnagaksalagi kunni takwa Inuit katutjakatigit angayok kangin iksibautang illunit katimayigillutigo akiksimamman ilinyaka ako mayunit tigo sinasuksuta ikanayaktini kanu iliyong sangillo tayo niliyong ti tiyong may bigsangit ilinyaka sangillo iman na akislo kataktabon ikanayak bingangin nuli ilinyaka ako iluta ukakasukatagata akisimamimat ilinyaka nakpo ukwa Inuit takunani nunakaktut ikanayak bikagotik takunani inungni kinatuin nakliksyan ikanaya kaluni ikanayani iman na kubakti palyayi maguniyo ati kun ukarayon nakto takwa kinaw ya tiksaraki katagatigo mani ukiok taktaming nakto ni ikanayak tulay kunni yalo knife mi ilinyao tiksamiksanon Tamannali kinaujartaaqasunniq imanna iliniarutiksani ajornanginnersaavu kisiani titaarbitta iluani aulajutiksait kisiani tao amiarpallutik ammalu kinaujartaqallaringilluni aulajutiksattinni tamannali iliniarutissani tigusinnasunniq qanuiqattangittu 18 ajigiingitsuni iliniartitiniarnerpu qauyimanarσilluni аммалито асиагуунгаю илинниарниссаа ангертаумингмаан инна илинниартитилиги макуа нуналинни илинниарбеqa qallunaannuarluti kisiani илинниариасуугумматаа маанилу суурлу qimiquaruta силиатторсарби инуунни илисааяқангитто макуалу пипатлиаюлерии нуналинни упакту илинниартити qаттариахартуллу нангминертаагумаяни пипаллиалути инуунни оқаруннартуми илисаayитахангиммата иннарну илинниартиттинеэр таманна саққинниармигаттигу артикалит аққутигингиллутигу илаабигиарлугсугутигу қаллунаани налунайкутартааруннартуми тааяаю диплома пинасуклута сарруллутигу тайкунга туксаарата ангертаарлуни таманнаттау иннаи илинниартинингану пиюнгаутахарлуни илинниагаксауниармай укиуттини атитаана аақиттаугиалилаорсимагмат иманна исумақарлутик катутиқатиги инуин маунгалу нуққартоқаджаангиллуни қайбактуни пируқпаллианиарту укиортартами инуиллутааккуа увагуун суккуиннарни аула қанааяақаан паллута пируқпаллиажаангиннатта ангайоққаангунерсаму илинниаққуяуллутик пируқпаллиаққуяуллутайла эққанааяати гу пиллугу таманна саққититаалорсимагман кисиани таймамаана уджернартоқ оқаусерпу таманна аксуалу илисаригиахараттигу инуунниттинни иманна пипаллианиарутаа укиориаттинни табба пингасуниксули инуктиту илинниартиттиниартугут атауси оқаусериимаяра иннуит сибуллерпаами катимаяртортиллугит итсортақалаарма аксибаутоюми киваллермигуу илинниартулериджуакку ангайоққаангани аксуалу иманна икпингалаарсимама оқарманеққарами кинатуиннару укиуминник оқаруннангиннерминиглу ноққангатутеқариахангимма илинниарниумиксаанун итсуулуараавин qallunaujaqunanginnavi ilinniangillut imanna iliortauiaqanginnata tamatta ilinniarumagutta ilinniarunnaratta uqauserilaumagu noqqangattutiksaitaakkuа tautungillugit pipalliatuinnarluta inuktigut taanali innarmingaarluni uqausiuman imanna sangiyualugilarakku uvannu
амматтау тааккуата куннаратаагатсиоқуяннамик сивунгуутсианааққутааккуа атаиккут таймало такуннарниарнамаясси таана паақуасақ тайма паақуасақ униккаасиарнаама таматума сигунитсангата тааккуа TFN кут аммала ангайоққаагулернуни қануилуулаармагаарми оқатсианиартоқ таутутсиатуиннеқатсиги
куа тунгавикка тайма имана укиутама катамаргуасунгмата тимиуюи тайманнайтимик тайма катимаргуалаармата таакку катимаji lo amaruta ko nuwafta saaraaftu taiknuursartuumi aqaagutama taana katimajutauniartu
tukisit yutimi pannappisi
taymaila immaqaasibullerpaartaana kamaginasuarasuarniartuunila taakkua government-qakkut suurlumaanna utaqqigattigun taakkua angirutiuniartuit sibullerpautiksait tungavikkunni katimajittinni angertaugaanilaumata tayma maanna utaqqigatta government-qakkunni angilaortillugit kisiana atiluorunnarsiниaqatta tayma taikani katimanerjuarmi immaqa tusarunnarniartuksariugut government-qakkut naniimmarileqaluarmangaata utaqqituinnerattigut ammalu tamakkua piyaksariluarniartagut atiluoraanituarutta uqauseriluarniarmiyavut piyaksauniarmingmata amisuit taikunga kingullerpaarsiutimi atiliulaortinnata taakkualuangullarmatalu ammalu immaqaoqauseriluarniarta sariyaqali makua qanortaana tungavikkut timiuyuq asijjeqqalliagiaharniarningani una pinjutigiruarlugu maannamutikillugu tamakkua aivajutigiaqartavut maanna pianipaluksimalermata akseerunnarni pianiksimalermata maanna taimatungavikkut soorlu ajjigingiuyartanganik aulujutiqariarneernermata taanna aivanerpianingmat maanna taima saqqipalliagiarnerninginni isimaaluk nersaagiarnermata tungavikkut qanu sunaniglu piiksaqaluarniarmangaata immaqataanna oqaseriumaluartaqaliila taikani iksivuatarni iksivuat litailneruma ammalu tukusissimayaqa katimanerduarpigialaortallugu taanna angayoqqaatoqa lisimalaortagut iksivualao pillerniartoq kinguniagu iksivuali tainneriarlunga taima taikani taakku oqaseriumaluaqajartakkuli isimaalugimmariksimajaqaila soorlu innuin tukusiumat tiariahamatu taatsuminga taikani kingullerpaarsiutimi atiliulaortinnata atiliulitainnaqajaqattaila inulima neruarunnartut nerualaortillugit taatsuminga angerutimmaringmi naammaksaq mataluunniit ubaluni naammaksangippan neruariaqalaarmata tungaani tamaani oqarsimammaringmiyunga nunaliit tamarmittiaq taakku toattisavaungmata nunali maana higgartortavut nunaliit atuni pulaqariaqammarinnniartavu
uqalseriqattalaortavutaikkua pinasiauaserilaortahinni tamatsimigatsaini oharnaarmata taakkua qallunaujaqaluarlutik kisianili taakkua toqaarniartu taakkunuunga piijaqtitsiyunut taikunga Secretary of State kunnut ammattaa Minister of Finance kunnu taakkua toqaanganiarmata taakkua takunna kaingalaarmilavut angayoqqaaqijauqattartut piipalliajuleriikkunnut qanuq isumaqarmangaataa.
I think that the cuts will seriously limit the ability of Native communications organizations to do their work. You know, I remember a day when I was younger when there wasn't any Inuktitut programming, and I always felt that was sad because that meant that Inuktitut, unilingual Inuktitut speaking people would have less access to information and less access to information and less ability to participate in the decision-making processes. I think that the Native communications organizations have changed all of that. And I think the Native communications particularly have been the major vehicles for cultural preservation and language preservation. And as you know, media and communications have a powerful impact upon those two items particularly. And I think that's really sad that these cuts will seriously limit that ability. I think as well what Native communication societies have done, especially in Inuit communities, is increase Inuit people's sense of unity. Not everybody can travel, but television about Inuit people, by Inuit people, have brought Inuit people together and made people feel more closely to other Inuit peoples in the rest of Canada. That's an overall objective that we have been trying to achieve, and I think that the Native communications organizations have done that for us very well. I think as well you know, the Native communications organizations have done an incredible job of making people understand the issues that are facing them, especially very important issues like the Constitution and land claims, and have allowed Inuit people to participate in discussions and participate in the decision-making processes. And I think in saying that, one thing that has to be recognized is that particularly in the NWT in Northern Quebec, the language of the Inuit people is Inuktitut, and they've had the benefit of being able to watch the news in Inuktitut and therefore be involved in those decision-making processes. And I think, you know, that's allowing Inuit people to become almost equal to the rest of mainstream Canadians in understanding the issues that are facing them. Unfortunately, with the cuts, the people who need the money most are the people that are being hurt. Like when I say that, I think about the Oxalaqatiik Society in Labrador, because Oxalaqatiik Society is the only communications organization which provides news and current information in Inuktitut. And I really worry about that because the Inuk language in Labrador has always been endangered, but I think Okhalkhati more so than any other organization has helped Inuit people to feel very, very proud of who we are, and has helped preserve a language that was at one time endangered.
Hello, my name is Bob Skelly, and I'm the Aboriginal Affairs Critic for the New Democratic Party in the Parliament of Canada. Over the last several years, both Inuit and Aboriginal broadcasting organizations have done a terrific job in Canada, transferring the message of Inuit organizations and Aboriginal organizations to the very people that those organizations serve, and also getting the news across from those organizations to the Canadian people as a whole. And one of the values of this type of communication is that we better understand the Aboriginal and Inuit people of Canada, and Aboriginal and Inuit people better understand what's happening in the rest of Canada. Unfortunately, in the current budget, Michael Wilson, through the Secretary of State's Department, has cut back on the funding of the Native media organizations. The result has been for Native print media, which reaches 1 in every 4 Canadian Aboriginal homes. Those organizations have lost 100% of their funding. And the terrific work that they do in communicating both to mainstream Canada and to Aboriginal organizations, the needs and the changes that are taking place in Canadian society, that work will be cut off completely. One of the priorities that has been put forward by the Canadian government was the priority of making people literate. Canada has a tremendous illiteracy problem, and Native people have a problem of 40% illiteracy. One of the achievements of Native print media organizations was to help reduce that problem and to increase literacy among Native populations. Unfortunately, as a result of the budget cuts, that program is going to be impossible. It's a very, very tragic situation, and one that we, both in the New Democratic Party and in the House of Commons and across Canada, are intent to fight until these program cuts are reversed. We don't think this makes any sense at all. Why did the government make these program cuts? Well, I think if you look back to the Nielsen report of 1985, you'll find the reasons. The federal Conservative government at that time decided that they wanted to decapitate Native organizations, to stop organizations like the AFN and the Inuit Tapirsat, and to try to cut off the funding at that point and put the funding back in the banned communities. And that hasn't even happened in this case. So I think what's happened is we've seen those organizations that have been a thorn in the ideological side of the Conservative government have seen their funding cut off, have seen the funding for their communications agencies cut off, and as a result we're presented with this tragic condition. I'll tell you that I, as a New Democratic Party Aboriginal Affairs critic, my leader Audrey McLaughlin, who represents a northern riding in the Yukon, and all of our caucus are going to do anything that we possibly can to reverse the cuts that have taken place both in Native broadcasting, in Native print media, and to the Native political organizations. We cannot see how the government can possibly sustain this level of cuts to Native people in Canada without invoking a reaction against them on the basis of racial prejudice and intolerance. So we're going to be carrying on that battle in the House of Commons through the question process, through the speech process, through the petition process, on behalf of the people involved in Native organizations, in Native broadcasting, and in the Native media. This cannot be allowed to continue.
Mr. Speaker, for other Native communications who are going to be hit by this reduction in cost, and it could very much affect the kinds of broadcasting, award-winning broadcasting. The Inuit Broadcasting Corporation wins awards around the world, but we're going to cut it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Prime Minister. On February the 15th, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, "It is time to remind ourselves what it is like to be a minority and to treat minorities with the same tolerance and generosity of spirit that we would want to be treated with if the situations were reversed, end of quote. Does the Prime Minister believe his Minister of Justice upheld this noble sentiment when he eliminated the funding 5 days later for Aboriginal newspapers, severely cut back Aboriginal radio and television programming, and terminated and slashed Aboriginal political organizations' funding?
Well, first of all, thank you, IBC, for inviting me here to comment on recent developments in your financial arrangements with the Government of Canada. Inuk tukusingi langa suli kadluna gama. Kisiani sibudli koyanimik nakomik CBC am tamaktonga IBC. Actually okagomavonga Canada government mut. So kaima tusaloktonga dan the government kinaria IBC mut. Man Mickey Naksa Amalu Mickey Lawaktok. My name is Roger Cousins. I'm from Iqaluit, and I've been a resident of Northern Canada for 30 or 40 years, starting in Denny and Anishinaabe country in the early 50s. I first arrived on Baffin Island 29 years ago. Now that I have the opportunity to speak to the appropriate federal government department, I would like to state that organizations like the Inuit Broadcasting Corporation cannot and should not have their financial support cut. In those parts of Aboriginal Canada, such as Nunavut, there is and has been a sad lack of communication in and through the native languages. IBC is an important source of quality communication. I have heard that the Government of Canada says organizations like IBC should look for alternative sources of funding. It is my suggestion that in this economically depressed part of Canada, there are no alternative sources. With few exceptions, we live totally on public funding in the Arctic. Inuit in Canada's Arctic have been very accommodating toward Southerners. The Inuit have accepted our governments, our military, our mines, our commerce. Even English and French as an official language has been accepted up here. As with all Aboriginal languages, Inuktitut is being threatened. And the Inuit should now expect its senior government to be accommodating by fully supporting Inuktitut broadcasting by IBC. I note that the finance minister visited Edmonton the other night to discuss cutbacks in government spending. I'm sure the Inuit of the Eastern Arctic would like to invite the Honourable Jerry Wiener north to discuss the funding of IBC. Thank you. Nakomik.
Okay, my name is Mickey Coleman. I'm a longtime resident in Frobisher Bay, Iqaluit. I first moved up here in 1963 after serving 5 years in the Canadian Armed Forces. I've worked hand in hand with the Inuit, and in the last 15 years I've been in a position to hire the Inuit to work with our company, with my brother Fred, and understand the problems that they do have, problems that are arising. And I was quite disturbed to hear that the Conservative government is going to cut back on the funding that they have given to worthwhile organizations such as IBC. IBC is very important to the culture of the Inuit because it's a vehicle that travels that their people look at to recognize that their culture isn't going down the drain. Their children are no different than any other children in Canada. They watch TV, and when those little children can watch their own culture on TV, their own language, they're hearing it, they're seeing it. It's very important to them, and it's also important to me as a resident here that these people are not overlooked. I will actually say that the government is playing a bit of a shell game. They're saying that there is all kinds of funding, but when you go to that source, there's nothing there. So now they tell these people to go to another shell, and when you lift that shell, they're saying that the funding is someplace else. Well, the government should be ashamed of themselves to play this type of game and treat the Inuit as children, and they certainly are not. We looked for directions to the Inuit when we moved here in this area, and companies like ours are growing because of the knowledge we also learned from them.
Hi, Jerry Weiner. Got a minute? Come on, have a seat. I want to talk to you for a second. Oh, but do you mind waiting just a minute? I missed the news this morning. I'd like to find out what's going on. Let's turn on the TV and see what's on. Hamilton, Toronto, Detroit, Vancouver, more Hamilton, Edmonton. There's nothing local on. Let's try the newspaper. I really need to find out what's going on with TFN. What do we got here? We got Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, nothing local? Right, I have to wait 3 days till Friday. That's when the weekly paper comes. Let's try radio then, okay? It's the one source of local information that we have here. So hang on, let's see what we get. Morningside, Peter Zosky, more Toronto. You know, Jerry, that's what the situation's going to be like if you continue ahead with these proposed cuts to both Native communication societies and to Native political organizations. It will be very, very difficult for us to find out what's going on in the Northwest Territories at a time when it's crucial for us to be well informed. Decisions are being made by the Inuit, by the Dene, and by the Métis that will affect them for years. Land claims are being negotiated and settled. Political organizations are developing, and more people are getting involved. And education is now coming to reflect both Native values and Native needs. In times of change and development, it's critical to have a responsive and committed local media. In the North, Native media provides us with informed and detailed coverage of activities and events. The main places that we get information, the main places we get the information that we need in order to be part of these changes is from Native media and through publications of Native organizations like TFN and the Assembly of First Nations. Your budget cuts, Jerry Weiner, will eliminate that flow of information. As an English-speaking resident of the North, I learn from Native media. Cultural programming on IBC, for instance, teaches me about the people I live with and the people I work with. Programming in Inuktitut helps me to learn the language, to understand and to appreciate that I live in a non-English culture. Reading the Native press gives me a whole other perspective on events and life in the North, and that's a perspective I don't get in the Globe and Mail.
Taima amisu yut silak tuami taima aiva te hattanga tatakuno gawa makayakkunnut taima te ubagutta taima de palle hattaga khadagala waqta ilangala taima le hattaga waqtu ilangatikun mikiju pala mi taima de tuja hattaga waqtu kisanele taima tu satwa ga matakanane arawami federal government kunne taikani katime jangane ataw sakololone ima okagak takak patakakwa go amisum makyalonni tusak tuja mata tamatama mitsanut ibi aiva tigi yangata takanwa tunisigutse tan ikajak parleu tiwi nganang meyok takun nagatak tasi taimat chainak taw isumaginang mekattigo takwa silak jang me sunali mar kinakuli marlo gapamekayamene aiva takakumajon taima bigun mata sulu sappukullu tamanna pinasya wasrilawtarini atuhattalaawtabun sangnenaqartutigullo Kojanna meita kunna kainagata sitaat semenga haggamik ubang rosi Simon Favio junga takayakkanilaqpasi pinasya wasrilawtahinne
Native media strengthens and celebrates language, culture, and tradition. It's a living journalism, alive with energy, enthusiasm, and strength. Native media talks to people in their languages, encourages them to take part, to be active, and to be informed. Native media talks to people in their languages. It encourages them to take part, to be active, and to be informed. I teach journalism here in the Eastern Arctic. When I stand up in class next fall, in my Introduction to Media class, I don't want to begin with, We used to have a strong Native media in this country, but that all changed when the Secretary of State cut funding to those organizations. I want to be able to, as I have in the past, encourage new journalists to work with Native organizations and getting that information out to people, to getting people active, to excite them and to inform them. I'm asking you to restore funding to both Native communication societies and to Native political organizations. Do not silence those voices of strength, of change, and of the future. And if you do that, you can come back and watch TV anytime.
Ready to roll, Christopher?
Common ground on which all civilizations and cultures meet is that they are interwoven with the rights and freedoms of all human beings who are born free and equal in dignity. The International Bill of Human Rights, which includes the Universal Declaration and the International Covenants on Human Rights and other relevant international human rights instruments purport to protect everyone's freedoms and rights without any distinction as to race, religion, color, descent, or national or ethnic origin. It is recognized nowadays that massive or gross denials and violations of human rights arising mainly from racial discrimination and oppression outrage the conscience of mankind and endanger the foundations of freedom, justice, peace, and security in the contemporary world. Especially indigenous peoples who have been oppressed for centuries and continue to be in certain countries oppressed are entitled to all fundamental freedoms, human rights, and human and fair treatment. The United Nations, bearing in mind the above-mentioned basic principles, as early as 1972, authorized the Subcommission on Prevention of Discrimination and Protection of Minorities to appoint Mr. Jose Martinez Cobo to elaborate his monumental study of the problem of discrimination against indigenous populations. Also, as a result of pressing demands made by indigenous representatives, non-governmental organizations concerned, and human rights activists, the United Nations Subcommission has recommended to the Commission on Human Rights and to the Economic and Social Council the creation of a working group to deal exclusively with problems concerning the observance of the rights and freedoms of indigenous populations throughout the world. Accordingly, the ECOSOC, by its significant Resolution 1982/34, authorized the Subcommission to establish annually a working group on indigenous populations to meet for up to 5 working days before the annual sessions of the Subcommission in order to, first, review developments pertaining to the promotion and protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms of indigenous populations, including information requested by the Secretary General annually from governments, specialized agencies, regional intergovernmental organizations, and non-governmental organizations, in consultative status with the ECOSOC, particularly those non-governmental organizations of indigenous peoples, including, of course, ICC, to analyze such materials and to submit its conclusions to the subcommission. Second, to give special attention to the evolution of standards concerning the rights of indigenous populations, taking account of both the similarities and the differences in the situations and aspirations of indigenous populations throughout the world. The working group had already 6 successive annual sessions, during which a constructive dialogue between indigenous peoples and representatives of governments concerned has been established. Also, an exchange of views and information takes place between indigenous representatives and officers of certain specialized agencies like ILO and UNESCO, as well as with non-governmental organizations. Hence, this working group has become the first permanent United Nations Forum devoted to the consideration of the problems of indigenous peoples and to the discussion of the evolution, as I said, of standards concerning the rights and freedoms of the indigenous peoples. One of the most important recommendations by the working group, which was duly approved by its parent bodies, was the creation of a United Nations voluntary fund for allowing indigenous peoples' representatives to participate in the deliberations of the working group. Thus, to a number of indigenous peoples coming from many parts of the globe was given the opportunity to participate to the work of the working group. We hope that more of them will be able to come during the next session of the working group, which, as you might know, will be next week, in 2 days. Voluntary contributions to this voluntary fund on indigenous peoples were made by the governments of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Norway, the Netherlands, Sweden, and 2 non-governmental organizations, including the Grand Council of the Crees of Canada. To all of them, we express deep gratitude and we appeal to all governments and other organizations concerned to make their voluntary contribution to this fund, which, as I mentioned, is of great assistance to the indigenous peoples of the world community. Mr. Chairman, now according to Resolution 1983, 23 of the Commission on Human Rights. The subcommission should, among others, suggest appropriate means designed to ensure that the activities of the working group shall be better known in every country so as to ensure the broadest possible participation of representatives, observers from the indigenous peoples. In this respect, it is my intention to suggest to the working group during its next session to recommend to the subcommission that every effort should be made to promote and further encourage as wide as possible a presence of information, media, to supply to the press, radio and television, information, films and videotapes on the activities of the working group, related in particular to the active participation of the indigenous peoples. 3. To promote the preparation of materials to inform the public everywhere on the work of the working group and of the grave problems facing the indigenous peoples of the work community still today. And D, to give the widest possible distribution to the report of the working group among the indigenous peoples and the public in general. It was exactly in the spirit that I suggested to the Director General of the Center of Human Rights, Mr. Jan Martensson, and he has already approved it, a fact sit on indigenous peoples to be published as soon as possible. The draft was prepared, and I hope factor sheet number 9 on indigenous people to be circulated during the next session of the subcommission, that is to say next August, as one of the United Nations publications in this field. It should be underlined that notwithstanding human rights instruments already in force, there are very important issues relating to indigenous affairs which need to be addressed by the working group. In this respect, and on the basis of the second part of its mandate concerning standard settlement activities, the working group recommended to its parent bodies the preparation of a draft universal declaration on rights of indigenous peoples. Subsequently, on the basis of ECOSOC Resolution 1988/36, I was entrusted in elaborating the first draft of the Universal Declaration on Indigenous Rights, contained in document ECN 1988-25. This draft was considered as a thorough and useful working paper which contains a full set of principles and preambular paragraphs for insertion in a draft declaration. This working paper duly submitted to the indigenous peoples, to governments, intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations for their comments and relevant proposals. By 1st June 1989, substantive comments and proposals had been received by governments of Australia, Denmark, Canada, Czechoslovakia, Finland, Panama, Romania, Sweden, USSR, and Venezuela. Observations and proposals had also been received by some specialized agencies, including ILO and some other governmental and intergovernmental organizations. Further, 9 non-governmental organizations have submitted comments and suggestions. In this respect, it should be noted with appreciation the very comprehensive and constructive reply received by Inuit Circumpolar Conference. It should be also mentioned the valuable contribution made by Dali Salvo, both at the level of the preparatory group organized by the indigenous peoples for consideration of the working group and at the plenary of the working group itself. Unfortunately, in view of the small number of replies received from all parties concerned, which cannot be considered as reflecting the views and proposals of a sufficient number of governments and indigenous peoples, I thought that a complete and substantive revision of the above-mentioned existing working paper would be premature for this year. Further, in view of the diversity of opinions which have become evident in the observations made by governments on the one hand, and by indigenous organizations on the other, in particular on provisions as land and resources rights, self-determination, self-government, and self-autonomy, I felt that this and other basic provisions and principles in their substance should better stand as they are at the present time. In doing so, I have taken into account that the text of the working paper on the draft Universal Declaration, as it stands now, constitutes a fair balance between the aspirations of indigenous peoples and the legitimate concern of states, and for that reason seems to be a realistic approach to this issue. It should be also mentioned that substantial changes have to be acceptable to all parties concerned. It is important that we keep in mind that regardless if we like or not, we must have also the approval of the governments. In order a draft Universal Declaration to be approved by all the competent bodies and organs of the United Nations, we need the votes, as you know better than me, of the governments. Therefore, we have to continue the dialogue between all the parties concerned. Thus, I decided to restrict myself as much as possible to some additions concerning certain not controversial principles, technical alterations of preambular and operative principles, where I consider them appropriate and feasible rather than inserting more extensive, controversial and substantive revision. This would be done later in close cooperation with the other members of the working group, with indigenous and governmental representatives. Nevertheless, I would like to state that in the above-mentioned first revised draft Universal Declaration, the term people, and I emphasize that, the term people instead of population has been used throughout the text. Further, among the additions which I have included in the revised text of the draft declaration is, in the preamble, a provision referred to the right of self-determination. This wording which I have adopted was the maximum which I could be done objectively at the present time. Also, Principle 9, the right to develop, the right of the indigenous people, I repeat, to develop and promote their languages, including literary language, and to use them for administrative, juridical, cultural, and other purposes. Further, Principle 17, the right to require that states consult with indigenous peoples and with both domestic and transnational corporations prior to the commencement of any large-scale projects, particularly natural resources projects, or exploitation of mineral and other subsoil resources, in order to enhance the project's benefits and to mitigate any adverse economic, social, environmental, and cultural effects. Just and fair compensation shall be provided for any such activity or adverse consequences undertaken. I have also referred to the right to protection of the environment of the indigenous people, and in particular against any action of course of conduct which may result in the destruction, deterioration, or pollution of their traditional habitat, land, air, water, sea, ice, wildlife, or other resources without free and informed consent of the indigenous peoples affected. The right again to just and fair compensation for any such action or cause of contact. I deal particularly with the protection of the environment, and it is my opinion again that indigenous peoples were the first people in the world who have referred to the protection of their environment, and among them the first were the Inuits, if I may say so. It is not only important to protect the environment for their own lives.
Amia kisisuri.
Piyare kamale.
Ai tungo sukutsi takut sona ala mata tabona takuneko. Ulu mitabane hatirane arakiti mutiku aniku. Ulu me ukausa kang ne arastaan nuani.
Tinsukare lawad. Piyare kamale.
Piyare kisi. Kulako. Anang ngarapi. Ang tingo. Ano kali ko magsio? Ano ka nga? Mangat. Ilit sitaw, ano kasi na, ano kang wali ko ng music. Inung wali ko ng music. Paipami mo ito may atutuin na kayali. Paipami at tumana malo. Paipami kikatayo may. Amalo ame ako tini. Na tungjuk tau titaka. Tema chen tema pikataka tema anu kang wala tunaka. Taman na atuang lugu. Amalo ani impitaw atuang lugu. Atuang sigo na kasi. Aha. Kalingwang lekan ito. Unakai. Ano ka ang waliw na kami yaka. May atot si kakalabas eh. Tapang. Tay matau te chumani watsi ako te chumani la atu khata yumata kisana nuani khisira yagalani tamakuninga tuttu gayanne khulitsanne tay ma khimqwanne gata khanu pi annu ga khata yuma ta tuttu gayanne amalo matsi gayanne pualungi wala kaminginne ubai ani Taga una tuttu kaya pattu chimay. Tuttu. Una li Timothy susukulakyo.
Kailang mapalay.
Tana taga maksula ngayanga. Taga utu na ngayanga. Utu kaya mata kisyani ulu kalunyo sunuma. Taga ulu kaya naraksura matala. Tamakwan at sikaya tuttu kaya tasisikara kasurumay mata taga tasikru amalo meksu luti mektikara kasurumata mekti amalo taga ibalui ibalo kara kasuruma taima taga anu kani ama tiapia tuttu kaya pinai ani kuai khatti kaya wakami Kita una
kami tuttumu
takata hulit sana tuttu kayapi khalluna takhayun lawsima malitechuma takata tuttu kayapi atan amalo ikhatti kayapu alungit khallini tuttu kaya amalo kamini natsi kaya khani tuttu nami kami khasugumata takata piaga ikhatti kaya kami. Una tuttu kaya wala nasanga ngai. Kaya matao tuttu kaya kamata ama tinitakatao natsi kaya meju ama tinga.
Biuju kaya na.
Kami ngi ajiru nang mata. Kaya ikhatti kaya amalo kulit saw kamatena tuttu kaya amalo natsi kaya mitao atiri khasuru meju. Ila manali anu ka khattalang tatamakuninga khallunartani ila atuttasungurulu atuttu kayai
Mini khallunanuat
ananatsia Malayangai khanuipe
taga khanuingit nung ako ufungaw tiyaka mikilwakilala akong lagi Ano ngayon?
Taggaw sirivati.
Kilat churi tema sana zaminiti.
Supa?
Kilat churi sana zaminiti tema.
Kilit churi.
Kili yung itakakilak tak.
Kili.
Kilat daw kayo yaka.
Aha. Aso. Taga ibiagang naman sutati.
Ilali. Kasi ano tayo maagatin no. Masukat talaw karuakata. Ala kami liyo katatuta. Manari. Asi. Ila kami liyo kundak tayo ma.
Hala. Ukwataw kami. Kanalok ya sana yaw kata si Jui.
Hala.
Agka nga nung kanalok.